What's up, guys? Welcome back to another edition of the Quick Bricks NBA DFS podcast, brought to you by the good guys over at Fantasy to Gens. As always, Sean Mitchell here, at smitchell17 on Twitter. Hope everybody is waking up to an enjoyable Monday. I know nobody wants to really go back to work, but hey, that's reality. Just one of those things. Got to get back in the groove. Had a nice little 4-day weekend, so can't really complain. It always goes too fast. Hopefully everybody had a great Thanksgiving holiday, played it safe, had a good one, ate a lot of food, made some money in DFS, watched a lot of football. That is what I did. Anyways, let's jump onto this 6-game slate that we have today in the association. We have a nice little slate, a couple good games. Let's go ahead and run them down. It's Jazz at the 76ers, Philadelphia minus 5.5 here at home with 206 total. Utah coming in as the not fastest team over their last 5 games, 76ers 27th. So Jazz have actually been running with some decent pace lately. This will be a nice little pace-up spot for the Sixers. Suns at the Hornets. Phoenix minus 3.5 here on the road. 225 on the total. Highest one that we have at the moment. Phoenix running at the 12th highest pace over their last 5 games, and Charlotte dead last at 30th. So again, a nice little pace-up spot for the Hornets here. We got a nice total. We know these two teams aren't exactly known for their defense, especially Charlotte, so that one will be a good one. Obviously, should be pretty chalky. Warriors here on a back-to-back against the Hawks. I did mention Utah's on a back-to-back against 76ers, so surprisingly that total is not more, but I mean the Jazz did just kind of get walloped last night by the Raptors, so a little bit interesting there. Maybe they'll come out with some fire tonight. I expect it to probably be a lot closer than the game last night. Let's see here. Warriors at the Hawks. Like I said, Atlanta minus 6.5 here on their home floor. 222 on the total. Like I said, Warriors on a back-to-back. We have Golden State coming in as the 20th fastest team over their last 5, with Atlanta coming in at 4th. Atlanta has reached that top 5 status again. They've been as high as number 1 over the last week. Golden State was running in the mid-teens here a week or so ago. So this is a pretty good game to target here, obviously. It has already been reported that Draymond will sit today, so that is big for the Warriors. Obviously, a lot of value on that team. The Hawks, of course, continue to have value as well. So that's going to be a game we're going to look to target. Second highest total on the board at the moment. Knicks at the Bucks. Milwaukee minus 15.5 here. No total. Looks like Marcus Morris is having some neck issues. He sat yesterday, so that'll be interesting. We got to see if he's going to play. Frankie Smokes left after half. Dennis Smith Jr. played 31 minutes. So that one's interesting. That's probably why there's no total. The Knicks, 26th in terms of pace over the last 5. Milwaukee, 11th. So that's pretty interesting. Milwaukee is pretty close to the top 2 on the season, but over the last 5, only running with the 11th highest pace. So that was really interesting. It's a big total. It's kind of an ugly game. If Marcus Morris sits, Frankie Smokes sits, you're looking at an easily potential blowout. So keep that in mind. Pacers at the Grizz. Indiana minus 6.5 here. No total on this one as well. Waiting. I mean, obviously, we know the Grizz are going to be without Ja Morant. They're going to be without Jonas Valanciunas. This is not a good spot for the Grizz. The only thing that they have going for them is that it's on their home floor, but they're going to have a lot of guys step up. Indiana 15th over their last 5 in terms of pace. Memphis is 7th. Memphis has been hanging around that top 10. They've been running really fast, and I don't expect that to change. So nice little pace-up spot here. Small, but a nice little pace-up spot here for Indiana. And then your late night hammer over on the West Coast. You have the Bulls visiting the Kings. Sacramento minus 5.5 here at a 210 total. Chicago 17th in their last 5 in terms of pace. Sacramento 28th. Not the pace you really want, but this game, I believe, will be good. Both of these teams don't play a whole ton of defense, and they run decently quick. So we know Chicago was up in the top 3 last week. Of course, a couple games with Milwaukee will do that to you. Nonetheless, they run decently. So there's a rundown of your games. Like I said, if I'm going to kind of rank them right now, I really like the Warriors and the Hawks, then the Bulls and the Kings, then the Suns and the Hornets. And then I'm probably going to look at the Pacers Grizz, and then Jazz at 76ers, and finally the Knicks and the Bucks. Knicks and the Bucks just really isn't appealing to me at the moment, and I might not even play Giannis. I might go Trae Young, Joel Embiid, and smash spots, and just go with that. So point guard spot, Trae Young, to a little segue right into it. Trae Young, 10.5, over 52 or more in his last 4 or 5. Gold State allowing the number 1 fantasy points to the point guard spot over the last 5, and he's had a 35.6% usage over his last 5 games. So Trae Young's getting back to form. The guy's been absolutely killing it lately. He's averaging a good amount of fantasy points at home, right? I think over 44. So Trae Young will probably be one of my top spend-ups tonight. Ben Simmons at 8.3. He only has had a 19% usage in his last 5, but his assist percentage is 34.7 and his total rebound percentage is 14.5. So he's a triple-double threat on any given night, and we can see that. He does a little bit of everything. He's averaging 42.7 fantasy points at home, only 36.1 away. So he's kind of a homebody. This kind of shows in his fantasy point total here in his home road splits. And he's had 50 or more in his last 3 of 5 at home. So Ben Simmons at 8.3, I'm totally fine with. Malcolm Brogdon at 8.1. Of course, Memphis without Morant. This is a really tough spot for Tyus Jones. Memphis is allowing the 7th most fantasy points to the point guard spot over the last 5, even with Morant. We know that they've struggled against guards. Malcolm Brogdon has been really good lately. 35 or more in his last 4, 43 last game. So Malcolm Brogdon, he's a little bit high priced at 8-1, but he's been getting it done, and he should have a really nice matchup once again tonight in a fast-paced game against Memphis. Terry Rozier at 6.7, 22.5% usage over his last 5 at home, over 36 fantasy points in his last 4 or 5. Phoenix allowing the 3rd most fantasy points to the point guard spot over their last 5 games. He's averaging 31.1 fantasy points at home. Terry Rozier has been bringing it a little bit lately. I think he's put up over like 32 in his last 4 or 5. He's been playing really well. So Terry Rozier at 6.7. Tyus Jones at 5.6. He's going to only played 25 minutes last night. This is a back-to-back for Memphis, so this isn't exactly a great spot again. But none the fact he's going to have to play. He's saw 25 minutes last night, put up 31 fantasy points versus Minnesota in Minnesota. Hopefully we get to see him play at least 25 to 30 minutes. If you want to pay 5.6, so that's totally up to you. He's going to be playing against Malcolm Brogdon, who is a pretty damn good defender. So I think there's some other places that you can go. Here's one, Kyle Bowman at 5.1. No Draymond. We already know that the guy put up back-to-back 40-plus fantasy point games without Draymond earlier in the season. We know Atlanta's defense against the point guard spot is booty, so Kyle Bowman at 5.1 here has excellent value, of course, going into Atlanta in a very high-paced game. You're going to want to look to get some value in that game, and Kyle Bowman is absolutely one of those. So, Kyle Bowman at 5.1. DeAnthony Melton, it might be one that you want to look at as a pivot from Tyus, because he played 23 minutes last night against Minnesota and put up 35.8 fantasy points. He had a 20.6% usage. He had a 47.1% assist percentage and a 13.7 rebound percentage. He had a nice line last night. He's one of those guys that comes and goes from the G League. He just got brought back on Saturday. So he's played, like I said, played a nice amount of minutes last night. Looks like they're going to kind of split that time. I would much rather play him at 3.4 against a second team. Likely, Brogdon probably plays 30 minutes, and you probably get to see the backup, Aaron Holiday, probably for a little bit. I'd rather play Melton at 3.4. I think there's tons of value on him in this spot, in that pace-up spot here at home. So Melton, I think, will be in play at 3.4. DSJ, Dennis Smith Jr. at 3.2. Like I said, Frankie Smokes, he left the game at halftime yesterday with some back spasms, a sore back. He could potentially miss tonight if he does. We just saw DSJ play 38 minutes, put up 32.8 fantasy points last night. Milwaukee, we know I know we don't exactly love this game, and of course there's going to be other value that we're going to be looking at. But the simple fact is if Frankie Smokes is out and DSJ gets the start at 3.2. Obviously, he's going to be a massive free square, going to be a massive chalk, but it's going to be tough, of course. Like I said, playing Milwaukee, a 16-point favorite dog here, I should say. But another one, Alonzo Trier, should probably get a little bit of run. I don't know. Only played 7 minutes last game. I'm not really sure if he's even in the rotation. So just wanted to throw that out there. That kind of rounds out the point guard spot. Moving right along to the shooting guard spot. Devin Booker at 8.2. Charlotte allowing the number 2 most fantasy points to that shooting guard spot over the last 5. Nice high total here, highest one on the board, averaging 40.1 fantasy points on the road. Devin Booker continues to get it done. He's averaging his value at that price at 8.2. So I totally don't mind Booker here, but I think if you want to go a little cheaper, you can look at Zach LaVine at 7.9, averaging 43.1 fantasy points on the road, 47.5, 58.8, and 60.5 in his last 3 road games. He's averaging 33.5% usage over his last 5 on the road. LaVine has flipped a switch, fellas and ladies. He's just absolutely balling out. Obviously, the comments that were made from the coach about his defense has turned the whole thing And he's been playing really well. So like Zach LaVine at 7.9 in that late night hammer against the Kings, I'm a big fan. Devontae Graham at 7.2. He's now put up 38, 34.3, and 49.8 in his last three, averaging 41.7 fantasy points at home, and a smidge over 22% at 22.1% usage in his last five at home. He's been playing really well. We know Booker is not exactly known for his defense. Devontae Graham could go a little bit under the radar tonight with such a stacked top part of the shooting guard spot with Booker, LaVine. And then, of course, on DraftKings, you have the multi-eligible position guys up there as well. So Devontae Graham at 7.2 I think is pretty interesting. Of course, high total, nice flow in that game. Buddy Hield at 7.1 if you want to run it back in that stack with the Bulls and the Kings. Totally fine with Buddy Hield at 7.1. He's put up 28.5, 55.75, and 35.5 in his last three at home, or just last three. I'm sorry. But he has had a 28.3% usage rate in his last five games. So getting lots of usage. Obviously, still have no De'Aaron Fox. Bogdan has been kind of banged up lately. He's probable to play, so this might play into that one a little bit because I have him next at 6.2. 30.3% usage in his last five. He's put up 28.5, 32.5, and 35 in his last three games. He's obviously those two in tandem have been really good with no Marvin Bagley, no De'Aaron Fox, so those two guys have been playing really well. Another guy for the Warriors that you might want to get on, again, Alec Burks at 6K. Of course, he's now put up, a couple games. He put up 3 games over 40 fantasy points without Draymond whenever earlier in the season. Atlanta is allowing the 5th most fantasy points to that shooting guard spot over the last 5, and he's averaging 32.2 in his last 5 games. So Burks will absolutely be in play once again here against Atlanta in that nice high-paced game. So be looking to get a little bit of Burks. Small forward, Kelly Oubre at 7K, averaging 33.1 on the road. Just put up 48. So he had a 48 and a 50.5 point fantasy game smashed or sandwiched between a 15.25 and an 18.25. So it's kind of what you get with Oubre. You're going to get some really nice outputs, and you get some really bad ones. It's been that way kind of all season. It's kind of it's a gamble if you want to play Oubre, but it is a good spot against Charlotte. We know they don't exactly play the greatest defense. So if you want to play Oubre, that's fine with me. He's averaging 23.7% usage over his last 5. So he's getting good looks. He's getting good usage. He's putting up big numbers when he actually does put up big numbers. So we know we've seen he's got 45 plus upside. So he's there. Harrison Barnes at 6K, model of consistency. Chicago, we know, is terrible against a small forward spot. He's put up 33 or more in his last 3 or 4, played over 33 minutes in his last 10. He's averaging a smidge above 28 fantasy points in his home games with 28.4. So Harrison Barnes at 6K, I think he's totally fine. Kevin Middleton, or Chris, I did this last time. Chris Middleton, that guy, 5.7. He's only played 23 minutes in his last 3 games, but the simple fact that he's playing off the bench, he's playing, hopefully he'll play 25 minutes tonight. Again, it is, the Knicks, they are at home here, and it's a 15.5 point spread. But nonetheless, he's put up 16, 12, and 15 real points in his last 3 since returning, and he has a 30.5% usage rate over those last 3. That's the highest on the team. So, again, I know he's only playing limited minutes, but he's only 5.7K. He's put up 30 once already, I think 30 fantasy points in one game at least. Only played 19 minutes last game in the blowout. So it's kind of a gamble, but if you want to test it, I don't think anybody's going to be on him. Jay Crowder at 5.4 is a very nice cash play, I believe, tonight, averaging 28.8 at home compared to 20.9 on the road. In his last 4 at home, he's put up 23.5, 28, 38, and 38. TJ Warren is not very good on defense. He is just a main scoring top player and not exactly the greatest on defense. So Jay Crowder, he's been seeing 28-plus minutes in about every game so far this year. They're going to absolutely need him tonight with no Val and no Morant. So I think Crowder is actually playable in all formats at 5.4. Glenn Robinson, 3 at 5.1. Atlanta allowing the 4th most fantasy points to the small forward spot over the last 5. They have been terrible against the small forward spot all year. DeAndre Hunter has not been the greatest on defense. GR3 without Draymond has actually put up some decent numbers. 27 or more in his last 3 of 5. We know we've seen him put up 30 and 40-point fantasy games, so we know he has the upside. It's going to be a fast game. He's going to probably go underlooked in that one, so his value is pretty decent tonight. Royce O'Neal at 3.9 for Utah. Only played 19 minutes last. Only played 19 minutes last game against the Raptors in that blowout. But he still managed to put up 23.5 fantasy points. He's been playing a lot of minutes. He's a starting small forward. He's played over 27 minutes in his last 7. He's put up 23, 26, and 23.5 in his last 3 or 4 games. He's putting up decent numbers. I know it's against the Sixers, but he's real cheap. So if you want to look there, totally fine with it. Go into the power forward spot. Giannis at $12K. I don't believe that I will be paying up for Giannis. If he puts up 60 fantasy points in 3 quarters, because that's what it's going to look like it's going to happen at $12K, and you're happy with that, excuse me, and you're fine with that, then go for it. But I don't believe that I'm going to be paying that much, hoping that he gets that kind of amount of return, especially in a game that has a 16-point total, or spread, sorry. Domantas Sabonis at $8K, averaging 41.2 on the road. Memphis allowing the 7th most fantasy points to the power forward spot over the last 5. And he's now put up 32, 47.5, and 38.3 in his last 3 road games. He's just a beast. They're going to be without Valanciunas, which is really going to hurt their interior. So, yeah, I'm totally fine with Sabonis at $8K. Jabari Parker is averaging 30.1 at home. In his last 3 home games, 38.3, 34.8, and 26.3. He's garnering right a little bit under 21% usage in his last 3 games at 20.7 at home. I like Jabari here at home against Golden State. It's a nice spot, especially with no Draymond. So that one is interesting. Keep that one in mind. Al Horford at 6K or 6.4. Utah on a back-to-back here. Utah allowing the 4th most fantasy points to the power forward spot over the last 4. Over 31 fantasy points in his last 4 or 5. I think Horford's really interesting here, and I don't think a lot of people play him. I thought it was really interesting to know that Utah had been giving up the 4th most over their last 5 games. Bojan has not been getting it done on the defensive side of the ball. He's more worried about scoring. That's not good for him tonight because Horford's a really good defender, and he's pretty good on offense. So I think Horford at 6.4 is probably one of my more favorite value plays. Jaren Jackson Jr. at 6.2, 38.3 last game versus Indiana in this same game. Not this same game, but in Indiana. Now he gets him at home tonight. He's had a 23% usage in his last 5 at home. Of course, he's going to have to play 30-plus minutes without Val. There's no two ways about it. Brandon Clark is questionable, but he looks probable to play. They're going to need both of those guys, obviously, in the interior against Miles Turner and Sabonis. So if Jaren Jackson Jr. can stay out of foul trouble at 6.2, he's a nice little value as well. Belicia at 6.1 versus Chicago. Chicago versus power forwards, it's been a thing all year. They've been terrible against them. He has averaged 30.8 fantasy points in home games. He's now put up 34, 31.5, and 39.5 in his last 3 at home. Belicia is a nice wild card. He plays decent minutes. They're kind of sporadic at times, but the guy has upside. Of course, against a Bulls team that is, like I said, not been that great on the defensive side of the ball, especially at the 4 and 5. Belicia is very interesting tonight. Okay, moving on. Last power forward spot, Eric Paschal. Of course, with no Draymond, he's played 27 more minutes in his last 8 of 9. He's averaging 30 minutes on the road. He's put up 27 or more fantasy points in his last 8 of 9. Sorry, I had that wrong. Averaging 30 minutes on the road. He's playing big minutes. He put up 28 last night, I believe. But, of course, we're playing against the Jabari Parker defense here in Atlanta, so I'm totally fine with Eric Paschal if you want to play him. Just wanted to make a note that Kevon Looney will return tonight. I'm not sure how many minutes he will play, but that'll be interesting to see because they absolutely need him over in Golden State. So just wanted to make a note of that. Moving to the center spot, Joel Embiid, 10.3. We have seen a couple of good centers, versatile centers, have some big games against Utah. We got Utah on a back-to-back here. He's put up 3 straight over 50 in his last 3 games. We saw Karl Anthony Towns put up 65-plus against the same Utah team in Utah. We actually saw Embiid put up 56 in Utah earlier this season. So Joel Embiid is another probably decent pay-up that I don't think a lot of people will go to. I think a lot of people might punt the center spot just because they want to get in Giannis or they want to get in some of the other guys, top prize players in the other fields. But I could be totally wrong. There's not a whole lot of depth in all the other spots, so Joel could have some ownership. But nonetheless, he's still put up over 47 in his last 6 or 7, 3 straight over 50. Joel Embiid at home is a pretty nice little play here. Wendell Carter Jr. at 6.9, Sacramento versus Sinners. We know Holmes has an issue with fouling. He's a double-double machine. He's put up quite a few already this season. Now he's put up 32.8, 22.8, and 44.3 in his last 3 road games. He's a mixed bag. He's tough to play, especially at 7K, but we know he has the upside. We've seen it. 44.3 in that one of those road games is very interesting. I think it was against Charlotte. So anyway, if you want to look there, I'm totally fine. Rashawn Holmes on the flip side at 6.5. Chicago is allowing the 3rd most fantasy points to that center spot over the last 5. He's now put up 33.5 and 45.3 in his last 2 at home. He's put up over 33 fantasy points in 5 of 7 at home. Really like Rashawn Holmes at that price tag at 6.5K. We know, like I said, Chicago's been terrible against the center spot, so Rashawn Holmes will absolutely be in play. Miles Turner at 5.7, dirt cheap here. No Valanciunas. Memphis allowing the 8th most fantasy points to the center spot over the last 5, even with Val. He's played 25 or more minutes, and you're getting him at 5.7K. One of those tops, like I said, that you could get. one of those tops that you could get 18 fantasy points, or you could get 35. But at 5.7, I believe he's a pretty nice tournament play that you can look at. So Aaron Baines at 5.4, he's on a minutes limit, played 25 minutes last game, put up 27.8 fantasy points. He has a great spot here against Charlotte, a team that's allowing multiple big games to centers. So Aaron Baines should be able to exceed value even at 5.4 in 25 minutes. So one last one is Robin Lopez. If Brook Lopez happens to sit once again, he sat last game. Robin Lopez played 24 minutes, put up 33 fantasy points. If he happens to sit and Rolo gets another start, he'll be interesting at 4.4K. Keep that one in mind as well. So that does it. That's going to be it. This is your 6-gamer for this Monday slate on December 2nd. So enjoy your Monday. We'll talk about this slate again later. See you guys.